Today we're making a disposable glove using a compost bag in less than a minute. I set the timer for 1 minute and we're coming up onto 30 seconds now. Set this down on the bag, hold and press for 10 more seconds. With 10 seconds remaining on the counter, remove our template, and we have one glove. One glove that will hold water. There you have it. Just that easy. Now let me show you how to build one. You need to make the template, but before we get into the wire, we need to make a template of your hand. This is relatively quick and easy. If I can have your hand, please. So you want to position the fingers straight up with just a slight gap between them to get the pen in, and the thumb naturally relaxed to the side. Now, just like you're in elementary school, we're going to trace our hands. Make sure you get down to the very inside edge. And it doesn't have to be perfect by any means. Now we take this lightweight cardboard that I grabbed from my recycling bin, and we cut this out. Now you have a replica of your hand. You place it on a larger piece of cardboard. It doesn't have to be super thick, it's whatever you have laying around. And make sure you have a nice straight edge on the bottom somewhere. For this, I'm using this crease because the idea is you're going to keep this point fixed along this axis. We're going to start with the thumb. Make sure everything's nice and lined up along the bottom. We're going to trace the thumb only. Now we'll draw a line roughly through the center. Shift your hand template over along this axis line along the bottom until you're roughly lined up with your dotted line. I usually go for about the widest part of the finger or thumb, and I make sure the dotted line sort of lined up roughly along there. Then I trace the inside edge of the thumb, and I bring it over. Now this, we keep the lower of the two as our dictating line, and we just sort of cross over the top. Now this doesn't have to be exact. Every step will get it a little nicer, and then you can fine tune the wire at the very end. So don't worry if it doesn't look very pretty right now. It'll all work out in the end. We just need to get the width figured out, and that's 1.5 times the finger or the thumb we're creating. And we just slide it along this axis until we're finished every finger. Okay, now that I have my template drawn out on a cardboard, again with the pinky I did the same as the thumb, and I went with the lower of the two lines. Your main fingers usually stay relatively the same, so I just connected the tops. Next we'll grab a piece of wire. Now for this, it's from one fingertip of one arm to the other fingertip of the other arm, as far as you can stretch your arms out. Gives you all the wire you need within about 6 inches to spare. Now you take your wire and try not to poke yourself in the eye. If you need to wear some safety goggles or glasses at this point in time, that might be recommended. I leave myself a foot, 12 to 14 inches extra, and that'll be the handle at the end. And I literally just press it down onto the cardboard template, holding it in place with my fingers and bending it around. It doesn't have to be exact. We will give it, pretty it up at the end. Now make sure you give a little bit extra for your thumb and then shift it over. So your template isn't going to look, your metal template isn't going to look exactly the same as this. We just need this for your spacing. So make sure that your template always matches up for spacing of your metal to this, but it'll actually turn out wider because we need to make spacing between your fingers so you can have, and your thumb, so you can have a little bit of room to move your hand without tearing the bag itself. Okay, very rough shape, but that's all I need. I will bend this and shape this once I get this secured at the bottom and make a nice handle for it. So what I do to do that is I make sure my length is lined up, and I want it about 2 inches past my bottom axis line. And I'm going to bend straight up. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'll line up my pinky, figure out where it is, and go about 2 inches past my axis line and bend it straight up. At this point, I can bring my axis together along the bottom for a height, and I can cut off the excess wire. Discard this. Now at this point, we come up about 1/2 inch and we bend it straight over the other way so that it comes 90 degrees parallel to the hand, and it's raised 3/4 of an inch, 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. The same thing on the other side. Now put your wire together so you can expand and contract. Now come to the width that you've determined here by moving it over, and that's the width that you want to set it at. Pinch the wire with one hand and bend the wire around to lock it in place. Do the same thing on the other side. Bend it around once to lock it in place. Now we're going to work these 2 pieces of wire that are left over back towards the center to create a little handle. Make sure they're the same size. There we go, roughly the same size. We'll bring those together, bend them in half so we don't get the sharp point into our hand. We'll just bend that a couple of times to make a nice little handle. Now, this is the point where we can take 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever you'd like to do to how pretty you'd like to make it. Now you just have to have the general shape in order for your finger to fit in, and make sure you stick with the width that you've dictated here on your cardboard template. But as for your lines, you can straighten your lines as nicely as you'd like to make them with your wire, and that just takes a little bit of time and patience and going over it. Okay, so now that I have it roughly bent into the shape that I want it to be in, again, it's not perfect for me because it doesn't matter. Just need to seal the bag and cover my fingers to keep my hands nice and safe and clean. So now I make sure that I have the width. I don't, I'm a little short on this one. So I just bend it out just a hair. Now I have my width. The thumb, I check the same, the thumb's good. Middle finger is good, but I'm going to bend it out just a hair at the bottom, because realistically, as it tapers up, you could make the top a little bit narrower than the bottom, And I also make sure that I bend my fingers in so that they're parallel to each other, so that when I cut them at the end, I can just cut one slit right down the middle and leave that alone. I don't have to worry about trimming it nicely. So I try to keep these parallel the whole way through and make the thumb a nice comfortable curve. Now that everything is checked out, we're ready to get started. So we have the oven set to 350 degrees. I try to get it so it sits fairly flat, but it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, because we put a tea towel down, which allows it to press in. So after we push on it, it presses in. You don't have to worry about it being completely flat, but you want it to lay somewhat reasonably flat, somewhat reasonably straight. We set the timer for 1 minute. We place metal template in the oven, at which time we get our compostable bag set up on our tea towel with parchment paper set over it. And at 30 seconds we pull it out of the oven using an oven mitt, of course, safety first. And we place directly on. With our left hand, we use the pan to press it down, and we hold firmly for 15 seconds. After 30 seconds, the wire is cool enough to touch by your hand and you no longer need the oven mitt. So I let the counter count down for me, and I don't bother touching it until it tells me I can. At which time we only need to cut it out and we have a perfectly usable glove. Now, I can't fit my hand in here because it's my wife's. I'll let her fit it in there once I cut it out for her. But we have a perfectly sealed glove there that took literally less than a minute to make. Once we took a little bit of time to create the template that we only need to make once. So now I cut it out. I stay about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch away the whole time, because it's really, they're just disposables. There you have it, one glove. Can I get a hand please, Catherine? There you have it. Keep you safe at the grocery store, even cleaning your bathroom, whatever you need to do, and we're keeping the landfills free of plastics that don't need to be in there. Fully compostable.